All right, guys. So I wanted to do something a little different today. There's been a lot of talk about the final season of The Boys. It just aired the series finale. It's a show that I've watched since the very beginning. I've kept up with it throughout the years, and it's hard to believe that it has been running for 7 years, and so that's why a lot of people are so disappointed with how this season turned out and the finale kind of turned out overall. And I know people were making reviews after every single episode, and a lot of it is very negative. At least, kind of the ones that you see with when it comes to like video reviews, kind of what I'm doing right now. And I thought about doing that. I thought about doing a review after every single episode, but I really just wanted to get to the end just so that I can kind of get my full thoughts, get my full kind of thinking as to how this season went. And don't get me wrong, I did not think that this season was very good, very awesome and like wow and all of that. I'm in agreement with a lot of the fans where it's just the first season really was the best season, and that was for a number of reasons, mainly the writing staff was different than the writers that came afterwards, especially after season 3, and especially before this show was starting to be turned into a universe of its own, and we're going to get to that in a second. But no, I think that the first episode of this season was the best out of all of them, which is unfortunate because really the series finale should be the one that everyone, at least for a great show, should have everyone leave with, okay, yeah, we got what we wanted, or we got a satisfying ending. And if there's one thing that I could just say, it was just very underwhelming. Was it the worst series finale or the worst, final season of a TV show in history? No, no. I think it was just okay, but it was just very underwhelming for what was kind of been built up over the last 5 seasons, over 7 years. I mean, we started out with this show when this show first aired. It was before COVID. I mean, it was before the 2020 riots and BLM riots and all the craziness and the election and everything that went on with that. And we're now 5 years removed, kind of from that whole season of stuff. So this has been this show has been with us for a while, and from what it started to what it ended is just disappointing. Um, so to start out with start off with good, because I don't just want to be just totally negative. Overall, like the acting on this show has been very good. From Anthony Starr as Homelander, that's obviously nothing new. That's not a new praise, but he really brought his A game as always, even with the subtleties, which is why I think a lot of people just like him as a character because he's portrayed well. He's portrayed very, very, very well, not just with the overt rage, not with the overt madness that he descended into, but also just the subtleness with his interactions with the Deep, or his interactions with Sage, or, Sister Sage, and all that. Just pretty much across the board, the acting on this show throughout the entire run has been good in terms of the casting, in terms of the actors always doing a good job. I think the only thing you can really say is that Starlight's character. Starlight, with the work that the actress got done, kind of hampers the ability to talk. Which, when you're in a speaking role, unlike Kimiko, that was not good with whatever is going on. And obviously, she has said that it's this autoimmune thing that's going on. And then, yeah, the other thing with Kimiko's character having the ability to speak, I don't necessarily mind that, but yeah, it turned into like a whole. It did kind of ruin the mystique, I guess, of the character, where she's just sounding off, where like, yeah, she learned to speak through a lot of TikTok. And it's like, yeah, with the way you're talking and the way, just you learn through brain rot. And so, I mean, if that's how they wanted to go, okay, mission accomplished. But it really knocked her character down a peg, and which is why when she's not talking in the final episode, it kind of brought back like, okay, yeah, like this is how like an awesome portrayal of her character where she doesn't need to talk. But regardless, overall, I think the actors on this were very good. But the biggest problem, especially in this season, has been just the fact that the boys have become what they parodied, and that's not an unusual thing to happen when a show goes on for a period of time. But this one in particular is just so blatantly obvious because what has been like a main critique of the show is like corporations, you know, making things bigger than they need to be. You know, they expand things. They it becomes bloated, right? And there are problems that come with that. And so with the boys now turning it into its own cinematic universe. I mean, they're calling it, you know, the Vought cinematic universe, the showrunners, when it really, especially at the time when it started, it was seen as a critique of the Marvel cinematic universe and how just an absolute train wreck that whole franchise has become since the end of Endgame, or End War. I don't even remember. I mean, that's how long ago it's been, and but it's just because I don't keep up with that anymore with all the TV shows, all the series, all the different movies that are, yeah, they're all connected, but no one cares about that. And so for some reason, well, okay, maybe not for some reason, but the boys became very popular. So of course, when there's a new cash cow, people want to make sure that that can continue. But and again, that's not a bad thing. But when the quality of the main thing that made this whole thing popular starts to degrade because they're now pursuing these spin-offs, yeah, obviously that's going to be a problem, and a lot of fans are going to one notice that, but also two rightfully call that out, because when you run into just this, oh, we gotta set it up for the next thing, we gotta set it up for this, we gotta set it for that, because apparently we had Gen V, which I thought was good. I thought it was decent overall, but there were problems with that. Uh, so they had that be tied into this final season, kind of, but not not really, because the whole thing for Gen V was like, oh, we're gonna have Marie be the one because she's so powerful, because she's so important. She's gonna be the one to take on Homelander, and then they just get relegated to cameos in the actual main show. So it's like, okay, that was kind of pointless, at least for now. Although I think it looks like they're gonna set something up for that, because since the actual Gen V series got canceled, and then we have apparently the Boys Mexico, and then we have Vought Rising, which is the prequel, which this season 5 spent a lot of time setting up, and again, having spin-offs, having these other things that connects to the main universe, to the main show, that's not a problem. But we spent like what, half of this season talking about showcasing the characters and the plots for Vault Rising, and but now we kind of know how it ends because the prequel, especially like for example with like Bombsight, we know at the end he one lives, but also two he gets depowered at the end of his run. So it's like, okay, is it really worth having all that set up for a show when we really know a lot of the details with how the characters and like what their end state is, and with Soldier Boy, his end state, his apparent constant end state with the show is just he gets put back on ice, which has become a meme of its own. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the political satire. And look, obviously, as someone who is conservative, you just know that when it comes to mainstream entertainment, there is going to be those references, there are going to be those jokes, and I don't have a problem with that, but it just has to be good. But the satire, especially the political satire, it has to be good. And when Homelander just becomes just this overt parody of Trump because the showrunner doesn't like him, like, okay, but it just becomes just a caricature. It just becomes just this pointless, unfunny meme of something that we see on a daily basis. And the problem is that, and I know that the joke, especially now, is like, well, how can we parody Trump, because whatever Trump does is just so outlandish. And like, yeah, that is funny. Like, it's a problem when the guy that you're trying to lampoon all the time, the guy you're always trying to make fun of in a negative way, is actually funnier than you. Because whether you like him or hate him, Trump is a very funny guy on a consistent basis, whether it's with the photographs, whether it's with his one liners, and yes, his social media posting. He is an objectively a funny person. And so when you're trying to mock him in a way that just, I don't even know what the right phrase is, but when you're just mocking him in an unfunny way, it hurts. It hurts the show. It hurts. I mean, it just hurts what you're trying to do. And I recently saw this one post in response to the critique of season 5, where this one person is being like, "Well, of course they're trying to make fun of him because that's how crazy Trump is," and they really only started to do it this season. Like, when you go back into season 3, when Sonic, it was Sonic Scream, or the Latino character becomes part of the Seven, and Homelander and the rest of the Seven is welcoming him to the team. What does Homelander do? He serves the whole team burrito bowls and says, "Oh, the tower has the best burrito bowls in all of New York," and it's an obvious reference to Trump's tweet from like way back in 2016, 2015, when he was running for president, talking about how Trump Towers burrito bowls are the best. And on its surface, people might not understand that, because that is such an old reference, even from when that scene first aired in season 3. It's not as funny. It's not as funny to at least the audience that might be seeing it later on down the road. So people, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people who saw that scene and saw the taco bowl, burrito bowl scene, and they're like, "Oh, huh, haha," Homelander's just being stereotypical, assuming that Sonic Scream is gonna have is gonna appreciate a taco bowl because he's Latino, haha. But the intent of that was to go after Trump for his post. And again, the problem with using that is conservatives reference that post all the time. They think it's funny. Trump, you know, Trump makes those references all the time. I mean, so if you're trying to, mock this your political opposition, because that's the intent. It doesn't really work when you're using a joke that they are also in on and just think it's funny. I mean, this recent Cinco de Mayo, I was seeing people repost that post from over 10 years ago now. And it just doesn't hit. It doesn't have that biting satire that I think that they're trying to go for. And so, I don't want to harp on the political satire too much, because honestly, that's like not even like the worst thing about the show in terms of just the writing, the pacing, the overall narrative storytelling. Which is why I think that's why I just think it's just the whole thing has just been underwhelming. And I know people want to talk about like the posters where you have Butcher with the tower as rubble. You have Homelander up in space, and it looks like nuclear war has been broken out, or there's mass destruction on Earth that he's just simply observing. And I'm seeing a lot of people be like, "Well, that's just representative of their characters. That's just a metaphor for kind of what their things." And okay, I can kind of see what they're going for there, but honestly, I think it's just it's setting a tone, right? Posters obviously, clearly not every single poster there's going to be a scene from a promotional poster, but what does it do? It's setting a tone. It's setting an expectation. And the final fight between Butcher and Homelander, it just was very underwhelming. It seemed cheap, and I know people are saying like, well, there's budget concerns. Budget, it seems the show's grandness has contracted a lot in this season, with the set pieces, with even something as simple as extras. And I don't know if any of that's true, but it does seem like the show, the final setup, and the show overall just seemed very much smaller compared to, again, season 1, which you would think that's not how it would work. It would, the budget is smaller the first season, so they're able to go on and do bigger things. And okay, fine, maybe, and okay, fine, like the salaries for the actors have increased, but overall, it's just disappointing, and it's not something that I'm gonna harp on for a long time because at the end of the day, it is just a show. But when you look at something of how good it once was to where it is now, it just has a sense of being deflated, and so I think this is just going to be viewed as another blunder by people, by showrunners, or by a platform that wants to go above and beyond from what it originally was meant to be. And, I think, will any lessons be learned from it? I don't know. Because then when you look at, again, with the spinoffs, is it going to be just one season? Is Vought Rising one season? Because in theory, they can continue going for a little bit beyond just the original this original casting of Soldier Boy, Bomb Sight, and the other two, because they could in theory go all the way up until the start of the boys. But would that be any good? As of now, I don't think it would be. I don't think they would be able to really pull it off. And then for Vought or Boys Mexico, I don't even know what kind, because apparently it's gonna pick up after this final season, and so I'm not entirely sure. And look, I'm all for shows being set in Mexico. I think Mexico has a lot of good set pieces and good opportunity to tell stories. But I'm just kind of questioning of how what exactly the story would be, and so I guess we're gonna find out. So that's what I think of it. What are your thoughts? What are your, I assume, your many criticisms? Anyway, I just wanted to talk about it because a lot of people are talking about it, and it is kind of like a big thing. It is a big deal that this show is ending because of how popular it has been. So let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you at the next one.